All right. We'll now go into the presentation, which is about exploring the learning potentials of augmented reality through speculative design. And this paper has written by all three of us who are also presenting today. There's Sara, Paasch, Knudsen, Helene, Husted, Hansen, and Rikke, Ørngreen. That's difficult to say with a bit of Danish accent and a bit of Dinglish over it, but I hope you follow us. And of course, what we'll do today is to talk a little bit more, probably a bit more strictly close to the narrative of the paper, as we are not here having a live discussion and, well, we can chat and so on. But we want to give you a real sort of in-depth outlook to what the paper is about and to sort of prep you a little bit to when you are about to read the paper. So we'll walk through the different sections sort of in a very linear manner or at least mirroring the paper. So in our paper, we'll first discuss about the research design and what this is about. And we build our research and our paper on a definition of augmented reality, which is really inspired by a literature review, also looking into Wikipedia and sort of the practice around augmented reality. And in particular, we are sort of inspired by the definition given by Patrick Schoeffel in the Concise FinTech Compendium. And from that, we sort of built our own definition, and which is goes as follows. Augmented reality is an interactive experience of the real and/or augmented world, where the experience of objects found in the real and/or augmented world is enhanced through augmented sensory stimuli. It can be across several sensory modalities, including visual, auditory, which can be sound, it can be haptic, feeling that one is touching or being touched, and it can also be sensor to sensory, that was difficult to say, experiencing or touch, even pain, temperature, vibration, taste, and smell. So it can really be a full and rounded experience. Now, our research design was both placed in sort of one what could call participatory and design-oriented perspectives, where we stem from sort of pragmatism and then sort of an adductive approach to how we perceive knowledge. Now, we talk through and work a lot with speculative design workshops. However, in the paper, we do not unfold that very much, but you can go into these references that we have here, in particular in Ørngreen and Dunn and Raby, but we've also written a paper about speculative design as a method of inquiry in an online workshop setting, which we will be happy to share with you. If you want to dive into that some more. But our data really stem from a 4-month period in 2020, where we had 2 learning expert interviews with AR people, and then 5 workshops with 20 participants in total. Now, these participants on these workshops was K1 to 12 students, and each workshop had a duration of about 2.5 hours. And from these workshops and from the interview, we got a number of data which consisted of 1, audio recordings from these interviews and workshops, but also visual storyboards, which were created by the students who participated in this speculative design workshop and who made their own storyboards. And then the other kind of documentation from these exercises which were made on this workshop, and of course observations from them, our field notes written after the workshops. And that sort of constitute the research design when trying to explore the learning situation of AR. And from here I give the word to Helene.
Thank you. As Rikke said, it's the learning situation we were trying to find out. So in our case, a learning situation was understood as the framing of one or more tasks that scaffold the learners to achieve a desired knowledge or goal, and where the framing utilizes the different types of interactions that AR offers. We also discussed the theoretical concept developed by John Dewey, and then we developed into theoretical points of attention for analyzing AR learning situations. The theoretical points of attention in relation to AR we found out was broad activities, where the learning situation of AR should be based on broad activities and the tasks that incorporate many characteristics and competencies. They must lead to a real and workable result that gives rise to reflection and choices that can be translated and assessed in practice. It also inhabits social practice, where a learning situation with AR should be a joint activity, or practice where the successes and failures of the joint activity are experienced as one's own. It also incorporated context, where learning situations with AR should connect learning with a common context by incorporating everyday context in the form of home, school, community, and business. And last, materials. The learning situations with AR should include physical and augmented reality materials in the form of raw materials, loose parts, tools, both existing and the production of tools, and finished products. There must be an opportunity for interaction with the artifacts. The analysis we made of the learning potential of AR, we first consisted of a deductive thematic analysis. The first round searched for learning situation in the written empirical data, and the learning situations were then categorized based on theoretical points of attention, then further grouped based on similarities. The second round of analysis focused on the produce visualization from the participants in the form of storyboards. And these were also categorized based on theoretical points of attention. The themes found in the two categorizations were then compiled into 7 exemplary learning situations, which we have listed here. In the in-depth analysis, the theoretical points of attention were used to unfold how AR's learning potentials were expressed as they appeared in the teacher-students' imagined learning situations in the storyboards. We then have an example. As an example, the analysis of the storyboard below pointed to a need for an AR help function, as well as indicated how AR can be used to provide information about the surroundings. In this case, knowledge about physical principles. And let's just keep the picture so you can see it yourself. Yeah. The analysis of the participant experience of the workshops also showed that some K-112 students engaged in the speculative process positively, while others were more reluctant. It also showed that being innovative in their approach became difficult for the participants due to the lack of familiarity with AR and not understanding the technology completely. It also showed that, for example, knowing very little about AR and being critical towards technology in education in general, one participant became quite frustrated by the process, but completed the speculative process in the end and commented positively on the structure and narrative of the workshop. And now I give the words to Sara.
Yes, and I'll talk a little bit about the findings from analyzing these workshops. As we did our thematic analysis, we found that there were different categories of learning potentials of AR that can be utilized in both formal and informal learning situations. And we've just listed the overall categories here. If you want to learn more about the specific learning potentials in these categories, you can read more about it in our paper. But the first one is that AR can support learning by relating to and supporting praxis. There's a inherent interactivity in augmented reality that makes it possible to have this praxis element to it. AR can also support learning by bridging the physical and virtual world, whereas as opposed to virtual reality, where you are in a completely digital world, AR can actually be overlain on top of the real world. And that can be used in various contexts. And AR can also support learning by utilizing different modalities and activities. And because of, in many cases, you use digital overlays over the real world, you actually have the ability to use these modalities and activities in various ways, ranging from text to videos to tasks and things like that. Augmented reality can also support learning by supporting social practice and extending communication. And that's why, and that's because in again, in opposition to virtual reality, augmented reality can be put on augmented reality can be put on devices that are portable. So you can actually put it on either a tablet or a phone, and you can take it into the world and move about. So the communication can be done across locations. You don't actually have to be in the same place in order to interact. So our second research question was, why and when is it relevant to explore the learning potentials of AR in such a way, and how can it be done? AR as a technology is still developing. That can be seen both in the research, but also in the Gartner's hype cycle, where AR is still mentioned as a developing technology. And if you look to the market, both within commercial use of AR and use in educational settings, it is still limited, the different kinds of applications that you can actually find. So we still need insights into how to use and what potential and development can be done in using AR. So that need is still there, even though the technology does not yet exist. And it's very difficult to investigate a technology that does not yet exist. So that is one of the things that we set out to try, using the speculative design as an approach. And research on the use of AR in educational setting is definitely needed, as other research also points to. So speculative design can actually be a method for investigating a technology that does not exist, because as a design method, it offers a way of exploring and investigating, first of all, complex problems, which using AR for a learning situation most definitely can be categorized as. But also it has an inherent outlook to the future and can help define a preferable future for the use of AR in learning situations. So there's an element of trying to point the development, the research, the use towards what you actually want to do, and not just see at what is being done and what can you do with the existing technology. So that brings me to our conclusion. Unfortunately, no new innovative insights on the learning potentials were found. And of course, we hoped that would be the case. But we must conclude that based on what we found and relate that to the existing research, there's no new things that has arisen. That doesn't mean that we didn't get anything from doing this investigation. First of all, there's definitely a further need for research on the learning potentials of AR. And these innovative methods, such as speculative design, is definitely a way to do it. There are some considerations that should be done when wanting to use these innovative methods, and that is, what kind of time frame do you have available for doing these workshops? We found that workshops with fewer participants actually worked well when you're doing it online, but you might be constrained by a time frame and resources in your project and need to do it with maybe 10, 15 or 20 people. And then doing a workshop online could be problematic. The choice of participants become extremely important. We chose the K1 to K12 participants. And of course, based on that context, the learning potentials of AR were mostly situated in a K1, K12 setting, even though that was not the outline for the workshops. And it was quite difficult for them to transcend the setting of their, or the context of their own setting. And that was actually one of the aims of our workshop, was to make them transcend the K1, K12 setting and just look at the learning potentials. The choice of topic becomes really important as well. because the speculative design method in itself can be a complex process depending on which methods you put into it, which kind of exercises you use. So you have to be aware that the topic doesn't become either too complicated or is too far outside the participants' existing knowledge, because then everything becomes complicated, and then nobody really gets anything constructive out of it. So the choice of topic is very important. And so that is the conclusion to our paper. Exactly. Exploring the learning potentials of augmented through speculative design. We hope you enjoyed our presentation, and we also hope that you will read our paper.